Welcome to Entomology, the study of insects. In this presentation, you'll learn some of the basics of insect biology. We'll look at some of the reasons why insects are such a successful group and delve into some of the things that influence how they grow, reproduce, and develop. Insects have been around for a long time. The oldest insect fossil is from the Devonian period about 400 million years ago, but the first insects probably appeared earlier. Cockroaches were around way back in the Carboniferous era, about 350 million years ago. Most modern insect families appeared in the Jurassic, and further diversity occurred in the Cretaceous. It is believed that our modern groups or genera of insects had developed by the Tertiary period. Insects have witnessed the rise and fall of dinosaurs. They have survived at least 4 major cataclysms that resulted in planet-wide extinctions, and they continue to thrive despite mankind's best efforts at eradication. Insects are the most abundant and most diverse group of organisms on Earth, with about 2/3 of all living species. Insects comprise more than 3/4 of all the known animal species, but they are also huge in terms of sheer numbers. There are somewhere around 1 million ants for each one of us. Some scientists estimate that ants and termites alone make up 20% of the planet's animal biomass. So why are insects so successful? Insects have a unique combination of characteristics, which as a whole have given them an unusual survival advantage. The most important of these attributes are listed here. We'll be discussing the exoskeleton, or insect skin, in more detail in just a little bit, so you'll have to wait to find out how that contributes to their success. Their small body size is a consequence of having that exoskeleton. In order to become larger, the exoskeleton has to be proportionally thicker to support the additional mass of body tissue. But a thicker exoskeleton is also heavier, requiring larger muscle volume in order to move. So there's a physical limit as to how large insects can become before they can't move themselves around anymore. One advantage of being small is you don't need a lot of food and water to survive. In some cases, food requirements are so modest that an insect may live on a single plant or animal for its entire life and never exhaust its food supply. Small size is also a big advantage in avoiding predation. They can easily hide under a rock, beneath tree bark, or under a leaf to evade things that want to eat them. The ability to fly is a distinct advantage. Flight is a highly effective mode of escape from predators and an efficient means of transportation, allowing populations to expand more quickly into new habitats and exploit new resources. Most insects can reproduce quickly and a lot. We'll talk more about this capability later. Insects are genetically equipped to adapt quickly in the face of a changing environment. They have evolved to take advantage of many different resources and inhabit all kinds of ecological niches, from deserts, forests, and grasslands to freshwater habitats such as ponds, lakes, streams, and wetlands. A key feature of insects and other arthropods is their exoskeleton. This is the hard outer shell that encloses the muscles and internal organs. This structure gives shape and support to the body's soft tissues. The illustration is a cross-section of a stylized insect, as if it were cut right through the middle, as shown by the red line across this large scarab beetle. This gives you an idea how the alimentary canal, or the gut or digestive system, goes lengthwise through the center of the insect, with the nerve cord running along the bottom, and the muscles attached to the exoskeleton, although of course there are many more muscles than illustrated here. Muscles that attach directly to the body wall combine maximum strength with near optimum mechanical advantage for great leverage ability. That means that insects are super strong relative to their size. For example, an ant can lift up to 50 times its own body weight. You try that in the weight room at the gym. Although the exoskeleton is tough, it is also flexible, so in many regards is like many of the synthetic plastics that are produced today. This combination of strength and resiliency provides protection from the elements, resisting both physical and chemical attack. The exoskeleton acts like a suit of armor, requiring a lot of force to crush the body. It is covered by an impervious layer of wax that prevents desiccation or loss of moisture. But being so impervious to the outside also means that it is difficult to sense the environment directly through the skin. Another complication of having a rigid exoskeleton is that it can't expand to accommodate growth. So in order to get larger, an insect has to not only grow a bigger body, it has to grow a new skin first under the old one. When the new skin is ready, the insect has to pop out of its old skin, usually through a split along the back, as you can see in this cicada molting from the last nymphal skin. Once the insect has wriggled out of the old confining exoskeleton, it can expand to the new size. The new exoskeleton is soft and flexible for a limited time period, so this expansion has to happen before it hardens up. The insect may swallow air to puff itself up and stretch the new exoskeleton before it hardens, usually within about an hour. While doing this, the insect is very vulnerable to drying out or being eaten, so molting often occurs at night. When an insect molts from the last immature stage to the adult stage, it also has to expand the wings, which are an extension of the exoskeleton, frequently accomplishing this by pumping blood through the wing veins. Insect growth proceeds as a series of stages separated by a series of molts. These different stages are called instars and are generally designated by numbers, such as the third instar. The number of instars, and therefore how many times it molts, varies among species, but is usually consistent for any given species. In some cases, it is important to know which stage an insect is in, as older instars are generally harder to kill. Another reason insects are so successful, that we would consider them pests, is that they can reproduce quite quickly. Depending on the insect and the conditions, they may be able to complete a generation in just a few weeks, although not all insects operate this way. Some have a much longer, defined time frame for developing from egg to adult, but most insects also produce enormous numbers of offspring. As an example, consider the little fruit fly. Under normal household conditions, they could produce a new generation every 2 weeks, which would add up to 26 generations in a single year. At an average of 100 eggs laid per female, theoretically each of those flies could then lay their own 100 eggs, and their daughters could do the same, and so on for 26 times. So that one pair of fruit flies could produce an astronomical number of new flies. That's 10 followed by 41 zeros. Someone has calculated that 1,000 fruit flies fit into a cubic inch, and if all the potential fruit flies from that one pair of flies were put together, they would form a ball 96 million miles in diameter, a quantity that's nearly impossible to grasp. So why isn't the Earth covered with fruit flies? Well, because not many of those offspring actually survive to adulthood. Not only would food for that many flies be limiting, there are many mortality factors that kill insects. Some of the most important are weather, as in cold temperatures or rain that washes them off their food plants, or wind that dries them out. There are also natural enemies that eat them, predators that feed on them, and parasites that develop in or on them, eventually killing them. And just like people, bugs get sick and may die from certain fungal, bacterial, viral, or other types of diseases. Since most insects die before they ever have an opportunity to reproduce, a high reproductive potential is the species' best chance for survival, and the reason they produce so many offspring. Now we turn our attention to insect development. Insects are considered cold-blooded. Unlike mammals and humans that generate heat from internal metabolic processes to keep their bodies at a relatively constant temperature, insects and other cold-blooded animals are more influenced by their environment, so temperature plays a critical role in insect development. There is a threshold for each insect below which no development occurs. This is typically around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, although it does vary by species. Insects have an optimum temperature range in which they will grow rapidly, but there is a maximum temperature above which development stops. Metamorphosis refers to a change in form. Insects undergo significant changes controlled by hormones as they go through different life stages, from eggs to adults. There are some exceptions, but most insects have one of two types of metamorphosis. In many insects, there is little change in form, and the young or adults are similar in appearance. This is termed gradual metamorphosis, although it also may be referred to by other names such as simple or partial or primitive metamorphosis. Changes occur gradually as the animal matures, with the reproductive organs and wings developing incrementally during the immature stages and becoming functional only in adults. This is a slow transformation process that doesn't include all body tissues, so the immatures and adults share many characteristics, often living in the same or similar habitats and feeding on similar types of food. The young which hatch from the eggs are called nymphs. Nymphs lack wings, although the older instars do have wing buds as the wings start to develop. Gradual metamorphosis occurs in the more primitive groups of insects. Some examples of insects that have gradual metamorphosis include grasshoppers, termites, true bugs, leafhoppers, aphids, and dragonflies and damselflies. More advanced insects, however, undergo complete metamorphosis. This involves a dramatic transformation in form and function between the immature and adult stages. The immature stage, called a larva, or the plural larvae, looks nothing like its parents, often appearing worm-like. This is the feeding stage, consuming large amounts of food, not only in order to grow, but sometimes also to create reserves to sustain itself after it becomes an adult. The primary function of the adult is dispersal and reproduction, and it often bears little or no resemblance to its larval form. The advantage of this is that each stage can adapt to its own ecological role without compromising functions in the other stages. Because the immature and adults can be functionally very different, they may live in different habitats and eat different food, with the adult returning to the larval feeding site only to lay eggs. The different stages may even have different types of mouthparts. One dramatic example is the mosquito, which is aquatic as a larva, feeding on algae, bacteria, and other microbes in the water. The adult males feed on nectar, while the females feast on animal blood in order to obtain enough protein to develop eggs. This reduces competition between the different stages, allowing the insect to exploit more resources than if they all fed on the same thing. Among the insects, only 9 of the 28 orders undergo complete metamorphosis, yet those 9 orders represent about 86% of all insect species alive today. So complete metamorphosis is definitely an advantage. But in order to get from the fully grown larva to the adult, the insect has to completely reinvent itself. This happens during the transitional pupal stage, a period of massive internal and external reorganization. Although outwardly the pupa appears to be just sitting there, inside it is disassembling its larval organs and tissues and reassembling them into the adult parts. These are just a few examples of the larval stage of insects that undergo complete metamorphosis, including moths and butterflies, whose larvae are caterpillars, flies, whose larvae are worms or maggots, beetles, whose larvae are grubs, as well as others that don't have specific names, so are just called larvae. Those often unfamiliar larvae then transform into the more familiar adults, which most people recognize as ants, bees, wasps, flies, butterflies, and moths.